It's the Ugly American Werewolf in London Rock Podcast with your hosts, the Wolf and Action Jackson, who are keeping rock alive by talking classic rock, hard rock, progressive rock, heavy metal, 80s music, early MTV, UK vs. US chart success, and much more. This is the home of classic album and live concert reviews and your place for interviews with artists and legends. You're rocking with the Wolf. Hey out there, rock and rollers. Welcome to episode number 213 of the Ugly American Werewolf in London Rock Podcast. Brought to you by me, your host, Mac B. the Wolf, and I will be joined, as always, by my partner in crime from the East Coast of the USA, Mr. Gary Action Jackson. And if you tuned in last week, you know that we did our first half of our 2024 year in review, where we went over the albums we reviewed and the authors and podcasters that we welcomed on the show. And that's always a fun thing to do, to go through and reminisce about the fun conversations we had, the cool guests that we had on. And we even did a little ranking of the albums that we reviewed. And some of them are albums we've loved for decades, and some of them were records that we just reviewed last year and gained a newfound appreciation of them because we never done a deep dive before. And we shared a lot of stats on the show. I hope you were able to check that one out. And then you guessed it, this week is part 2 of our 2024 year in review, where we go over the concerts that we reviewed and all the artists and legends that we interviewed on the show. And this year was an amazing year for interviews. We had 15 different artists and legends on the show, which is up from 8 last year. So almost doubled the number of that. And part of that is due to our new monthly show, First Concert Memories, where we have people come on and talk about a special night in their lives where they saw a particular band for the first time and how it changed their lives. But it's just another opportunity to kind of share the rock and roll stories that we want to preserve, that we want people to hear. It's a big reason why we created the show. And we have a range of folks, from people who are just kind of taking off and starting to get on the rock scene, to people in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, who we've been listening to since the 80s, and some of whom have been recording since the 60s. It's a really amazing group of musicians, people who we admire, people who we like, people we're happy to call our friends. And we're going to run through all that here on this episode. But first, we do have a little bit of business to take care of. As always, we like to mention we are proud members of the Pantheon Podcast Network, a family of over 100 shows, and they are doing some crowd funding right now as they're going to do a big raise in 2025. You can get in on it for as little as $100. You can learn more at pantheonpodcast.com or on socials at PantheonPods. And we have to give a shout out to our extraordinary sponsor, rarevinyl.com. I know the holidays are over as you're listening to this, but maybe you got a little bit of money. Maybe you didn't get what you wanted to from anyone in your family. Well, now's your chance. Take that money, go to rarevinyl.com, and go find something that you love, whether it's a first print, a picture disc, something brand new, something you've wanted for decades, something in mint condition, a poster, a tour program, a deleted single. Buy them all. And then use the code UGLY and you can save 10% off your entire order. Not just one item in that order, but everything in your order is 10% off with the code UGLY. Folks at rarevinyl.com are amazing. They collect from all over the world. They ship all over the world. They're incredibly knowledgeable. And if they describe it a certain way, you can guarantee it's going to be exactly that kind of condition and exactly what you paid for. So go to rarevinyl.com, use the code UGLY to save 10%. Your record collection will thank you. Now back to our show here today. It's amazing the legends and the people who we love who came on this show. Rock and Roll Hall of Famers, people who we've had on the show who wanted to come back, people who we've been chasing for years and finally caught up to, some bands that we loved growing up and still love today. We get to talk to those members about making music videos and making the classic albums that we adore and that endure to this day. So let's jump into it. We're talking about all the concerts we reviewed and all the artists and legends we interviewed on the show in 2024 here on The Wolf. So this is part 2 of our year in review, and I wanted to go over some stats because this is the episode on which we do the concerts we reviewed and the artists and legends that we had on the show. And while it may have been kind of a down year for concerts, it was a huge year for artists and legends and people who we admire and people we wanted to have on the show and people who we used to watch on MTV when we were kids. Huge. Unbelievable. I honestly don't know how we're going to top it, and maybe we won't next year. But it's incredible that our little show, which we've been doing for more than 4 years now, had our 4th year anniversary just a month ago. Now in its 5th year. And now we're attracting the folks that we always wanted to talk to when we kind of dreamed up the show in the first place.
Yes, especially the Hallmark one for the big 200th episode. If you told me that we would be able to talk to these people in real time back in the college dorm days, I just would have thought, yeah, that'd be great. Sure, it's never going to happen. And then to actually see the person show up on your computer screen and get to spend some time with them, it's amazing.
Well, now, the fact of the matter is, we would have had to have been authors, to get 30, 35 years ago, whatever it was, to get this kind of access, we'd have had to have been authors, which we are not.
We're barely literate.
Yeah, exactly. We can't read, let alone write. Or, we'd have had to have been DJs, basically. Mm-hmm. And that's the only thing we could equate a podcast to in our minds, all that time ago. It's like, it would be you guys have a weekly radio show. That's the only thing we would have understood that a podcast was, right?
Right.
So we'd have a weekly radio show where we get to talk to people who we like, and nobody forces anybody on. Because, if you work at a radio station, they say, okay, well, look, in this week is so-and-so. Whether you like them or not, that's who you're interviewing. But because it's our show, we get to choose whoever we want to have on. And we have people who are legends in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, down to folks who are just kind of getting going, who are getting up and running, new artists who are fun to shine a little light on.
Hopefully we'll be legends one day.
All right, well, let's not push our luck here. Let's just happy for what we do have. I also think on this one, a little early, there's 3 groups of folks that we need to thank. And one is the folks at Pantheon Podcasts. They're the collective that we are a part of. Although they're based out in California, we have over 100 shows from all over the world who are part of Pantheon, and we share some resources and some ideas and some technologies. It's just kind of a collective of people who love rock music or whatever music they're into. Not everybody's into rock music, but whatever they're into, they love it and they want to talk about it and they want to get guests on who love it and make it. And we've been with them more than 2.5 years now. And it's cool to have this community of people all over the world. We've certainly made friends within the community. We've certainly had many of our fellow podcasters on our show, especially the First Concert Memories monthly show that we do. And I don't know, I think it's cool to be part of the collective, the people who think the same way, they love music the same way, they want to preserve it like we do. And the passion and knowledge that it's what we wanted to do when we made the show, is get stories in here, talk about why we love stuff, and then have guests on who love the same stuff or maybe love different things.
Yeah, I do like that. If you get somebody who's passionate about music or an artist that maybe you're not all in on, but just to hear them talk about that, the feeling is the same. And so maybe you get a more of a broader understanding of that artist or that genre. So yeah, having that resource, especially like you said for First Concert Memories, is important because we do get to easily meet new people.
Yeah, and we've become, friends with like the Shout It Out Loud guys, who are still my favorite podcast on the planet, the only one I listen to every week. Brian Slagle of Metal Blade Records is now part of it. The Apathy and Peace Brothers have shows on there, and we've gotten to know a lot of the folks, the Metallica Report folks, and it's cool to be a part of it. It's fun, and they've gotten us to some killer events. They've got us some really fun guests. Going to the Saucer Full of Secrets with Nick Mason last year. Yeah. Well, that wasn't last year. It was a couple years ago, but it's the way time flies. And having the Rock on Tours themselves, Guy Pratt and Gary Kemp on, that was very largely thanks to Pantheon Podcast. Still one of the real highlights of the show. I just think it's a great time to say thank you to Peter and Christian, the founders and leaders of Pantheon. And they're doing some money raising now. There's a crowdfunding thing going on where you can invest as little as $100 and own a piece of Pantheon Podcast as we grow it. There's a lot of exciting things coming up. And once the crowdfunding is done, they might just take it out to the private equity and the people with the big money in the world to see how much money we can get in to really grow this thing. So you can check out more at Pantheon Pods. You can always follow socials at Pantheon Pods. Plus, they do have their own feed. While you can get us on the Ugly American Werewolf in London feed, There's also a Pantheon Pods feed where most of the shows put their episodes on there at some point. Maybe it's a few days later, maybe it's a week later, maybe it's a month later, whatever. It's kind of a magazine where you can open up and see what everybody's up to and pick and choose what you might want to listen to. So something to know there for all you music lovers. Don't leave us, but if you want to find more, it's a great place to learn about some great shows, some of whom we had on our show this year, some of who we were on. Second is rarevinyl.com, our sponsor from the UK. A mail order vinyl, and it's not just vinyl anymore. They do everything. I mean, they've got CDs, they've got DVDs, they've got posters, point of sale stuff from record stores. They've got tour programs and tickets. Everything that collectors want, they've got. 250,000 items in stock. They ship all over the world. They've been doing it for 40 years. And if you use the code UGLY, you can save 10% off one whole order. Not just one item, but one whole order. So you want to go out and find like 5 rare first edition prints that you've been looking for a long time in good condition. Yeah, it might cost you $1,000, but you can save $100 with the code UGLY, which means you get your shipping knocked off anyway. And we've had a great year with them. They've been very good to us. It's the best year we've had with them so far. And so just a shout out to everybody who works there for helping support us. It's a huge part of the show. It brings in money that we can use on technology, on software, on the ability to get more and better guests. So got to give them their props.
And you really do need to go check it out because you forget about all the cool, like limited edition stuff, the one-offs, and some of the promotional stuff they have, like the stuff that was in the record stores, is just awesome. Like you forget about the things that were designed for the point of sale only. So go check it out. It's a real treasure trove of that kind of memorabilia.
It really is. It really is. And then thirdly, we got to thank the listeners from all over the world who continue to tune in every week to the show. It's kind of humbling. It doesn't really baffle me, but it does surprise me that so many people from so many places around the world want to hear what we have to say. And we have a good number of subscribers, and then we have some real true believers, people who definitely listen every week, people who send us comments, and we love getting comments. We can even take the negative ones, believe it or not. Whether it's on socials, you can DM us on there. You can always email us at uglyamericanwerewolf@gmail.com. Let us know what you thought about an episode or why you liked it or why you didn't, or what our experience with an album or whatever it was compares with your own experience growing up. And that's really what the show is about, is sharing in a community with people who are like-minded, people who grew up with this stuff, who like this stuff. Maybe you want to learn something more about it. Maybe you missed an album and one of our reviews opened your eyes and said, hey, maybe I should give this a chance. That's kind of what it is about for us. You and I like to do this. We like to talk about music. We don't live in the dorm together anymore. So having a couple hours a week to kind of get together, say, all right, forget work, forget the house, forget the family, forget the future, all that stuff. Let's just talk about stuff that we like to talk about. Just give us a little space, right? And then we just put it out in the world. I mean, it's the stuff we did sitting in the dorm 30 years ago, but now we share it with the world. And some people like it. Some people want to tune in. And that is amazing. And we just want to thank all of you out there for listening. We're going to keep doing it as long as you want to keep listening to it.
I had a coworker who I was talking to the show about, and he said he listened. And I think it was our episode on Led Zeppelin 4 a couple years ago. And he said, I haven't listened to that record. I haven't thought about that record in years. But I heard the show. I took it back out. I listened to it again. It was just a wonderful memory to come back, where you were when you first heard it, everything that goes along with it, and the songs. And that's it made me feel so good that we could have a positive impact on somebody, kind of rediscover. Like you said, there's a lot of stuff going on. You got a family, you got a job, you got a lot of stuff you got to do. If you can take some time out just to enjoy some good old rock and roll, that's all we're here for.
That's right. That's right. It's what we love. It's what we're passionate about.
Yeah.
And, yes, life intrudes on our rock and roll dreams now and then.
Need a little escape.
Yeah, we have this little space carved out for it, and so we keep doing it. We'll do it as long as we can. So thank you to everyone who's helped make our show what it's been for these 4 years and what it's been in 2024, because it really was an amazing year for the show. And we're going to get into some of the guests that really made it special here. Before we get to the artists and legends, though, we have to talk about the concerts that we reviewed. And yes, being in the Midwest for me and Southeast Georgia for you, It's not like being in London or Amsterdam where so many people come through there. And we were just I was picking and choosing who to go see. It's a little more difficult. Plus, I don't like to travel. I mean, when we were in our 20s, oh, they're 3 hours away? Okay, no problem. Let's jump in the car and we'll get in there and we'll just drive home in the middle of the night or whatever. Now it's like, if it's not downtown, I might not go. I probably won't go.
Is it a Wednesday night? I don't know.
But there were a few fun ones here. And the first that I went to near the start of the year was Journey with Toto opening for them. Now, the story about this is I remember last fall when the tickets came on sale, I'm like, I do want to see Toto. I've seen Journey with Arnell. I nearly don't need, and with more of the original band. I don't know if I really want to go see them. I go check the ticket prices. I'm like, you've got to be kidding me. No, I'm not going to go. I made the conscious decision not to go. Then Christmas 2023 rolls around, and the girls give me tickets to go see Journey and Toto. So I'm like, oh, okay, well, that's nice. Sure. Yeah, all right, I'll take you guys. It'll be fun. Let's go. So, of course, night of the concert comes up. She-Wolf's like, I don't really want to go to the show tonight. And I'm like, damn it, woman. You bought the tickets. And the Wolf Cub is dying to go. She told all of her friends she's going to go. She's super excited. We're going to the show. So we get down there, get into the joint. They're the worst tickets I have had for a show since I was a teenager. I'm like, there's a reason I buy the tickets to the shows because I know how to get the good ones. And you obviously don't. Like, she bought them at the last, like, she heard it on the radio after they'd been on sale for a long time. It's like, oh, let's get that for Daddy. But hey, look, doesn't matter. We're in the building. I'd always wanted to see Toto. Mm-hmm. So
you didn't realize there was a third deck there?
Yeah, we're way, way up there. I was getting a little, dizzy up there. I'm like, I don't know if I like this. Are there seatbelts, man? It makes me a little nervous. But Toto was fun. And they've got a good lineup, and they tell good stories. Luke tells fun stories. They riff on, being on Thriller and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. They play some of the intros to some of those songs, and they play their big hits, and it's fun. And then, probably the line of the year, Journey comes out. And, Arnell's running around. He's singing. He's running around the stage. He's getting people psyched up.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not too long after that my daughter turns to me and she says,
a puzzled look in her eye,
he's not the lead singer of Journey. And I go, he is now. And she gets mad. She goes, he's a replacement. I said, I know. She goes, where's the other guy? I said, well, he's retired. It's kind of a long story, honey. And it just dawned on me that I'd always shown her like the Separate Ways video, and we'd recently seen The Greatest Night in Pop, where Steve Perry, just like killed it on his part of We Are the World. I'm like, God, he had an amazing voice, didn't he? It never dawned on me that I didn't tell her that he's not in the band anymore and hasn't been for a long time. I'd forgotten that I guess I just never told you that, honey. And I felt like a terrible parent because she was expecting to see Steve Perry, and when you don't, I mean, you go in knowing there's no Steve Perry. That's right. One thing. But it's like, I'm going to go see Journey with their lead singer, and you go there, only one she's going to recognize anyway. And he's not there. And she finds this out in like the first 15 seconds. She was kind of bummed. So you gotta tell your kids what's going on with the bands and who's going to be there and who isn't.
Honey, this is a series called Behind the Music. You're going to want to watch this first because things are going to turn dark for the band. And there's going to be some breakups. Yeah. Bad blood, and
it's the same for all 267 episodes.
Right, exactly. Things are great, but stormy times are ahead. But it is funny though that she was excited and she knew exactly who she was looking for. Mm-hmm. That wasn't what she got, and you wonder at this point in time. I mean, Steve Perry hasn't been in the band since what, mid 2000s maybe?
Oh no, it's like 1998, like Time Square. They had a kind of a comeback song in the 90s.
Okay.
And then they were going to go on tour, and like Steve screwed up his back. I'm like, okay, well, we're going on tour without you. And they had these different guys. They had Jeff Scott Soto for a while. They had Steve Augeri for a while. And none of them really worked out until they found Arnell in the Philippines via YouTube.
So you figured, I mean, that's long enough ago that you just kind of accept it now. Like, yeah, that's just how it goes. Mm-hmm. But I would have loved to see the look on her face.
To a 9-year-old.
Put two and two together. Yeah. Hey, wait a minute. Somebody's lying to me. This is all crap. This is a cover band. Yeah.
Oh, man. Where's the other guy? She was so mad. So when we left early, I don't think she was as disappointed because the She-Wolf's always ready. You see 2 songs. Okay, we can go when you're ready. Okay, well, just sit down and be quiet. But, all right, so we survived that. But then the next one was special. March 1st in Jacksonville, we meet up down there to see Steve Hackett on the first night of that leg of that tour. The guy tours so much. He was wrapping up. So most of this year he did, was it Foxtrot at 50?
Yeah.
But he was still wrapping up some stuff from his final tour, from his last tour. But he had his new album out, Circus and the Night Whale. And so it was the first time you'd ever seen him. We got down there. We had great seats. We were right down near the front. What did you think about that show?
Well, I was all excited to begin with because you were talking about not wanting to travel. I'm like, and then to find out he's playing in Jacksonville at a theater down here was just, and it was the first night. It was awesome. I mean, I was kind of hyped up. It was cool to see the crowd going in there because at this point in time, I don't think there are any casual fans of Steve Hackett. These people are all in. Mm-hmm. And so it was cool to see the hype there and to see him play live. It's awesome. The band was great. He was great. I'm glad I got to see it. And I'm glad, like you said, the tickets were close enough where we could see everything. I mean, we could see him play all the fiddly bits. And he was very gracious with the audience too, which I thought was cool. Just a proper English gentleman.
Yeah, absolutely. And doing these songs, some of them are 50 plus years old, but then mixing them with a brand new album that he's really proud of. And it went to #1 on the Heritage charts in England.
Hey, now, wait a minute. And we may have talked about this during the show. We were like the first people to see that live, right?
In America, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, maybe overall, yeah. We certainly were in America.
Because that album had just come out, and he was the first, because he was going to do that cruise. Mm-hmm. And
Cruise
so
this was like,
this was the warm up to that. So yeah, we may be the first people who ever got to see it live.
Which is awesome. And the lighting was amazing. It always is. The whole band was on. It's just great that, someone who I had kind of discovered a little later in life and then got really into, and then I kind of dragged you into it. And I'm like, well, look, you got to see it for yourself, and then we'd interviewed him before. Of course, part of the show was we did get to interview him about the Circus of the Night Whale before, and then we got to go. No spoilers, but yeah, he was one of our big artist interviews this year, and just the whole thing that we got to interview him, then we get to go see first night of the tour, debuting this music, and then we went back to the house and talked all about it.
And that was the other cool thing too. I mean, it's not. You said the other songs were 50 plus years old. These are brand new stuff, brand new songs off the new album that all sounded great. There was no oh yeah, you know what? Hey, we're just working out the kinks here. It sounded like they had been playing that new stuff for a while. Yeah,
no, it all fit in beautifully. It was all very Steve Hackett and Genesis-y. So great show, great opportunity, and I'm sure there will be chances to see him again. His touring schedule is relentless. The next one was not too long after. I traveled over to Lexington. I took the Wolf Cub to see Colin Hay of Men at Work fame because I loved Men at Work growing up. Just loved him. And when I saw the documentary Waiting for My Real Life on Colin Hay, just to see what he went through, went huge stardom in the 80s with Men at Work. Then the band falls apart. Then he becomes a solo artist, but it doesn't really go anywhere. And then he just kind of becomes this troubadour out singing his songs and telling stories and entertaining people. I'm like, this is amazing. I would love to see this. And he did it. He did it at Lexington Opera House. So it's a small venue. He tells his stories. They're funny. And if you love Men at Work, he's going to play the big hits. It's just him and his guitars. That's it. And he's a great storyteller. He's very funny. And would I have loved to have seen Men at Work open for Fleetwood Mac in the early 80s? Of course I would have. But I think this is kind of distilling his life down to the essence of this is me. And this is how I roll. Just a funny old Scottish man who made a fortune in the rock business. It's so entertaining. I recommend anybody to go see him, anyone who gets a chance.
And to see the movie too, because it's an interesting look at his life. Like you said, a guy who he started this band. The band went nuclear right off the bat, and then you figure, well, sky's the limit now. No, they pull the rug out from under you, and yeah, I mean, I think it was one of those deals where wasn't he playing at some club in LA and somebody was like, "Hey, aren't you the dude from Men at Work? Whatever happened to you? Why don't you do some other stuff with us?" And yeah, he's had this whole kind of second phase of his career with the solo stuff, and then I think he is now back with a version of Men at Work on tour. But yeah, I think you're right. You'd rather hear him tell the stories too.
Yeah, no, and then he's in Ringo Starr's all-star band, and he hangs out with Paul McCartney when he's in town. I mean, he's kind of rock royalty, but he's not, the king on the throne. He's more like the jester.
Yeah.
But he's an amazing jester.
He does. There was a great interview with him one time where he was like, he showed the Grammy. He's like, this is the Grammy for Best New Artist / Kiss of Death Award.
Yep, exactly. Yeah, Christopher Cross won it just a few years before,
And whoopsies.
But the one that I had been waiting for and trying to see for a while was Mammoth WVH with Wolfgang Van Halen.
Ah, yes.
And that was fun, going downtown to see him in a club. He's a nice kid. He cusses a little bit, but that's the way the kids are these days. He's an amazing player. His band's fantastic. I'm just going to say this once. He needs to lose some weight. So do I, so I can say that. But I'm not on stage in front of tens of thousands of people, millions of people throughout the year. It's great that he's doing his own thing. His music is good. He's carving out his own niche. He's not just doing a bunch of Van Halen stuff. But come on, dude. You're on stage. You gotta lose some of that weight, dude. Come on, man.
I think for every person who was the son of somebody famous, especially in the same business, it's tough. And you think, yeah, okay, he's going to go out and sing some songs and maybe do mostly Van Halen stuff just to kind of pad it out. But no, it's really good. And he seems like a genuinely nice person. Talented as all get out. I've seen him, he played some of the Van Halen stuff for the Taylor Hawkins tribute.
Yep.
So, he won't do it in his shows, but he has done it before. He can play the hell out of the guitar and sing pretty well. And I think on the records, he plays everything, doesn't he?
I think in the first one, he certainly did. I'm not sure about the second one, but he's got all sorts of talent, so he might as well use it. Yeah. And he's great at it. Yeah. But those are the only four. That was all done by May. But next year, we are going to Sweden to see Iron Maiden. We're going to Nashville to see Metallica. And there will be other good stuff to do next year. So just a few this year. There will be more next year, and we can't wait to get to those. As far as touring goes, we did have a couple of instant reactions to some touring news. One was the Oasis reunion, which is coming, which I totally struck out on tickets for, but I have reason to believe there may be some tickets in our future for 2025.
Little glimmer of light.
There's a little glimmer of hope. We'll see what happens. And then we also, that long ago, had our reaction to Nico McBrain coming off the road for Iron Maiden. So super glad that we got to see him together last year, and curious to see what it'll be like without him next year.
I'm also interested to see on the Oasis shows. They were massive. The feedback that people had. I talked to a couple guys in London, and I just making conversation. Hey, did you get your Oasis tickets? And they were like, it was impossible. Yep. Impossible to get these things. So hopefully it's going to live up to the hype, because there's a lot of people out there that are super excited about these shows.
No, and they've enlisted Zach Starkey is back on the drums. They've got Gam Archer and Andy Bell from the last incarnation of Oasis, plus Bonehead from the original incarnation. So that's an awesome band, to be honest with you. That's awesome. So no excuses, right?
Right.
Yeah, it's going to be great. We also got to do a couple of movies. One was The Greatest Night in Pop, which we just kind of talked about briefly. It was a Netflix thing, but it was fascinating. It was so cool to see how they recorded We Are the World and the limited amount of time they had to do it and all the artists that participated. That was cool. But to see the Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers beach party around the time of Long After Dark and the You Got Lucky video with Cameron Crowe, something that was on MTV back in the day and then was kind of buried. To go see that on the screen was cool. Even the Wolf Cub, who obviously didn't understand how important early MTV was to us and what it was like, she's like, that was cool to go see that movie, Daddy.
It was cool to see Tom Petty. It's sad that he's passed now, but just a genuinely decent guy. The band all seemed like they were cool, just happy to just hang out and play music together. I think he's a guy that does not get enough credit. You were talking about the early MTV days. He was as big as, John Mellencamp and some of these other guys who I just don't think he ever got the same amount of credit that he deserved.
Well, I don't know, that late 80s, early 90s, he was kind of on top of the world. Full Moon Fever was huge. Then he goes back, and he's in the Wilburys as well. Then he comes back to the Heartbreakers with Into the Great Wide Open. Then they have a greatest hits album that has Mary Jane's Last Dance, and it goes like diamond. He's pretty big at that point. But yeah, I mean, I do miss him. And Mike Campbell has his autobiography coming out early next year. Heartbreaker. I think we're going to want to pick that one up, and maybe we could have him on. Who knows?
Hi, this is Carl Palmer, and you're listening to The Ugly American Werewolf.
But those are the concerts and the stuff we reviewed. Now to the 15 interviews, or, you know, it wasn't necessarily 15, but it was 15 artists and legends that we had on the show. And I went ahead and did some stats last night. Okay, 15 artists, 3 members of the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame on the show this year. We'd only had 2 in the 3 years before. And then this year we have 3 members of the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, plus 2 players from Rock and Roll Hall of Fame bands who they themselves weren't part of the crew that got into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. So that's 1 and 3 are in Rock and Roll Hall of Fame bands. And 6 repeat guests, people who had been on before but were happy to come back on. 3 females. And I want that number up in 2025. I think women have an important role to play in the resurgence of rock and roll.
Absolutely.
7 guitar players. Now, they may also be singers, but as far as what's their main role, guitar, not a surprise from us guitar heads, 7 of them are guitar players, which is cool. 1 drummer, 2 keyboard players, 3 lead singers, 1 who plays the bass, 2 who play guitar, and you could maybe add another lead singer to that who's a guitar player, 1 comedian, and 1 guitar tech for the world's only 3-time Rock and Roll Hall of Famer, Eric Clapton. And 15 is amazing. I think we had 9 in 2022. We had 8 in 2023. And 1 Rock and Roll Hall of Famer piece on those other dates. So this really was a special year as far as the guests we had on and the folks we got to host. And some of that's from our persistence. Some of that's from the growth of our show. And some of it's from the addition of First Concert Memories. It gives them another excuse to come on the show and hang out with us a little bit. All right, so let's go. Let's kind of start to walk through here. Early in the year, I discovered that my neighbor right behind me, Lee Dixon, was the guitar tech for Eric Clapton for 30 years. 30 years, you know.
And when you told me that, I had to process that for a minute. Wait, what? And he lives in your neighborhood.
Yep.
Not from America, but lives behind you in your neighborhood. Okay. Awesome.
If things had gone a little differently, we probably wouldn't have been friends, because the way we kind of met was my dog, my golden retriever, he likes to go say hi to everybody. The girls were out, and one time when we were out in the backyard, didn't keep the eye on the dog. He ran out to the front and starts hopping all over these dogs, not hurting them, just wants to say, hey, I'm a dog. I want to be a friend of yours. And I guess this one lady, this was like, my dog's been attacked and they're scared and you have to put a leash on the dog. I'm like, look, he's a golden retriever, honey. He's not a Doberman. Just calm down. I'm sorry. You know, I'm sorry my purebred champion upset your mutts, but, you know, go ahead, walk on, you know, whatever. Then a week or 2 later, the girls were outside with him. He saw the dogs. He ran. Oh, come on, guys. This is, you can't do this. Yeah. So She-Wolf makes friends with him, smooths it all out, and just starts talking to him. It turns out they lived in the same neighborhood as we did in London for a while, which is really weird. Like maybe even like on the same street at some point, completely bizarre. And that her husband, Lee, he worked with Eric Clapton for a while. So then we get together and he starts telling me stories, some of which I cannot tell on the air, but it's like, oh my God. This guy was there for everything from like 1980 to 2010. I mean, you're talking Live Aid. You're talking the tour with Roger Waters, the pros and cons of hitchhiking, which we had him come in and give us some insight on one of the shows. We actually had him on twice, just talking about his life with Eric Clapton, and then came back for pros and cons of hitchhiking, telling us some amazing, amazing stories. He's there for Live Aid. He's there for the Tears in Heaven phase and the when he blows up for Unplugged, you know. He's there for the Steve Winwood tour. He's there for the George Harrison tour of Japan. I mean, these are unbelievable things that he got to do. He was a part of. He played Madison Square Garden 50 times. You know, he played Royal Albert Hall 100 times or whatever. You know, it was something crazy like that. So just a funny guy with a lot of amazing stories. Can't tell them all on a show, on an episode, but if you ever have the chance to sit down and have a couple drinks with the guy, I highly, highly recommend it.
And that's something I really need to do. I understand the only time that I've gotten to speak to him is all through this show where he has to mind his P's and Q's. And so I would like to talk to him off the record just to hear him tell the tales of the days with Eric Clapton on the road, and it just get some behind the scenes stuff. Like I did get to ask him about had he ever had like a DEFCON 5 moment where things were all going down the drain quick. And he said, yeah, he had a deal where the guitar, like, it just didn't work. Like, it was not working. So, and the show's getting ready to start. Okay, here's another one. Still doesn't work. Now we're in trouble. We can't just tell the people, hey, you're going to have to come back tomorrow. He figured out it was something with the wireless setting, or it had something to do with that. It wasn't the guitar itself. It's gear. But he diagnosed it. He fixed it. The show went on. But yeah, you get about 4 or 5 minutes of panic setting in. But that's why he was so good at his job. He knew exactly what was going on, how to problem solve. And I think he said at one point in time, like, you kind of have to be a mind reader too, to work with a guy like that. You have to say, yeah, I know you didn't ask for this guitar, but I'm going to bring it just in case. Cause there's going to be that one day where you're like, hey man, do you have the 58 right here, buddy? I got it for you.
Here it is. Yeah. So no, that's a lot of stories. It's a lot of survival out there and a lot of partying, and it just tells great rock and roll stories and stuff that we want to hear and kind of preserve here. So yeah. But then right after that was Steve Hackett. Second time we had him on, but he was obviously, as always, very generous with his time and talking about his new album, Circus of the Night Whale, and all the many, many tour stops of the year. And of course, he's got, I think, the Alive acoustic show coming out here from Trading Boundaries. You can get an autographed one from his website. He'll be playing Trading Boundaries again early in 2025, probably with Amanda Lehman. And we'll be doing Lamb highlights because Lamb Lies Down at 50 happened, and that was the tour that he was on late last year. I think it continues in this year. The guy lets no grass grow under his feet. He tours the world. He does it basically all year round. And I guarantee you, even though he had a #1 album last year, he's already started to work on the next one. So God bless you, Steve.
Hi, this is Steve Hackett. You're listening to The Ugly American Werewolf in London.
Of course, he was in Genesis. The next one, Mel Gaynor from the Simple Minds. Man, that was cool because as we've talked about on the show, I love Simple Minds. They don't get the credit they are due in America. I got to see them when I lived in England and thought it was amazing. And now we are starting to do some of their bigger albums as they turn 40. So while he had his solo album to promote, he was happy to talk about the days of being in the Simple Minds and, when they're doing the Alive and Kicking video and the director is just keeping him up. Come With Me is the name of the album. First single was Run. And, just talking about how the director kept him up drinking all night.
I've watched that video probably 50 times now, just to hear him say how miserable he was in that experience.
And then you see the look on his face. Like he's just sitting there drumming like, you son of a, you kept me. I feel like shit. And we're in the mountains. And what the hell are we doing here?
I just want this to be over.
Great
but a
stories.
dude who he was not the original member of the band.
Right.
But I think his addition definitely supercharged their sound.
Yeah. A real pro from London. And he was with them for the big stuff, really. And, every time I hear "Don't You Forget About Me" come on the radio,
you know what you're waiting for.
Yeah, and it's his drum fill of it's so iconic. And I ask the Wolf Cub every time, did I ever tell you that I interviewed? Because it comes on the radio like once a week, when we're together. It's like, yes, Daddy, you told me.
Yeah. I know, whatever. Now make me some breakfast.
Yeah. So hopefully we do some Simple Minds next year.
This is Mel Gaynor from Simple Minds. You listen to The Ugly American Werewolf in London. You stay cool and see you soon.
Next up was Amanda Lehman, who we've known from Steve Hackett Band. It was her third time coming on the show. She did First Concert Memories talking about seeing Rainbow with Richie Blackmore when she was like 13 or 12 or something. Like, she was so young, and jumped on the train with her friends, went down there, pushed up to the front, saw Richie. I'm like, that's not unlike our friend Britt Lightning, who we're going to get to here, but it's like, what you want, and you go and you get after it. You go find it. And I would have loved to have seen Rainbow back in the day.
I would have loved to have seen a 12-year-old Amanda just take charge like that. No, we're getting on the train. I got the tickets. We're going up to the front. Yeah, that explains a lot about your rock and roll aura there, being developed at a very young age.
That's right. And I counted her as one of the 7 guitar players because she is a brilliant guitar player, and she doubles Steve on Every Day. But she's also an amazing singer. I mean, when she does Shadow of the Hierophant, when she's with Steve, it's fantastic, but she has, her own records, and she could do her own gigs where she has a beautiful, beautiful voice, but she's always got that red guitar ready to slay. And I'm just glad that she wanted to come back and do it. And she did get to do some dates in England with Steve.
Hi, I'm Amanda Lehman, and you're listening to Ugly American Werewolf in London Rock Podcast.
And the next was someone I was just so psyched to have on, Don Jameson from that metal show. I used to watch that metal show on VH1 Classic, and I loved it. It was kind of our speed. Eddie Trunk's on there. Jim Florentine was the other comedian they had on. They would always have incredible guests on. Eddie's super knowledgeable. These guys are huge fans. They do Stump the Trunk. I was sorry that they took it away. I don't know how the ratings could have been so bad on VH1 Classic that they decided that they didn't want to do the show anymore. And then they tried to do it a couple other places. They're kind of doing one on YouTube now. But Don is our Pantheon brother now. He's got the rock strap on Pantheon, where he's got a lot of athletes, big-time athletes who come on who are rock fans to talk about their stuff. And we got to hear No Sleep Till McSorley's, his latest live album, in advance. And it's just good stuff. And look, he's like us. He loves this music. He loves hard rock and heavy metal. And just his job as a comedian is finding a place in the world to wrap it into the observations that he has to make. And he gets to do all sorts of fun stuff.
Yeah, and get to talk to fun people. And you're right. That metal show was great because it was 3 guys who were fans. And the people they had on, if they didn't like stuff, they'd tell you straight up. They didn't sugarcoat anything. If something was terrible, they were going to tell you. And that's why I think Eddie said they would never get Paul Stanley on there, because he wasn't going to worship at the feet of Kiss. So it was a great show. And the other cool thing too was they always had the guitar player in the crowd.
Well, that's right.
Just warming the crowd up, playing some licks up there. Yeah, I do miss that show.
Yeah, it's a great show, man. I don't know why they wanted to take it off. What have they got on VH1 Classic now that's doing so much better? I don't even have VH1 Classic anymore, so I don't even know if it's a thing.
Hey, what's up, everybody? It's rock and roll comedian Don Jameson, and you're listening to my Pantheon podcast partners, the Ugly American Werewolf in London. And actually, they're kind of beautiful.
Next up is our buddy Nige Savage. Now, Nige is in a band called Chupacabra, where they create some new music, but he's kind of a citizen and is a listener of our show. He's also a listener of the Shout It Out Loudcast, and he just made it into the Shout It Out Loudcast Hall of Fame because he edited Raise Your Glasses, the book that they put out earlier this year that you and I are both quoted in, along with 100 other fans and writers and members of the band and songwriters. It's an amazing book. If you don't have it already, you should go get it. But he was, because he helped edit that, he's in their Hall of Fame. And if we had a Hall of Fame, he would get into it as well because he created the music that we use for our intro and our outro and some of the stuff we use on First Concert Memories. So we had to have him on. We just don't have money to pay him for his work. So if you're okay, well, we'll have him on to talk about the first time he saw Metallica, which was, I don't know, was it a week? Was it 2 weeks before Cliff died? It was very close.
I think it was wasn't it his last show?
No, I don't think so. I think it was close.
Okay, well, it was pretty close. Yeah, it was on the last tour. It was right before that, and to get to talk to somebody who witnessed that was pretty special.
Yeah, of course, he didn't know that it was going to be one of Cliff's last shows. Otherwise, he probably would have just stared at Cliff. He even made mention of that on the show. He's like, I would have stared at him the whole time had I known that was going to be the case. I'm like, yeah, of course you would have. But at any rate, he's fun to have on. We could have him on again. And then we got to our second member of the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, and that's Guy Fletcher from Dire Straits, and really Mark Knopfler's right-hand man. Yes, from Dire Straits, but he's been with Mark's band as a solo artist for years now. Mm-hmm. I mean, decades. He's kind of the DM, right? The musical director,
right,
of the band. He kind of helps choose the set list and how the songs are made, and he's a marvel in the studio. And with the Going Home charity single, where they had dozens of legendary guitarists, including Jeff Beck, and who is no longer with us, and David Gilmour. I mean, the cover alone is incredible. Basically like a Sgt. Pepper's kind of thing, of who's who of all these legends on there. Just to hear him talk about a little time in DS and working with the legend that is Mark. He was very open and super cool. I mean, this guy's a real legend, if you ask me.
And it's interesting too that he said that, you know, we asked him about working with Mark Knopfler and, you know, what is that? And he's like, for whatever reason, he just can pick up on what Mark is laying down.
Yep.
Like, you know, he kind of gives him an idea. Oh, okay, I know exactly. So you're right. He's the musical director. He runs that studio, which I would love to go and see sometime. I'd love to just sit in and watch him do
British Grove?
Yeah.
Oh my God, yes. It's about the nice, and plus it's near the river. It's the very nice area, but it's supposed to be super sweet. And yeah, Mark probably makes money off that place, although I think he reinvests in it and he keeps full-time engineers and staff there. But if you've got the money, that's one of the places you really want to be to record.
Hi, this is Guy Fletcher from Dire Straits, and you're listening to The Ugly American Werewolf in London.
And then we got to talk to another fellow Pantheon podcaster, Britt Lightning, who is not only the lead guitarist in Vixen, but she runs Rock Camp. And they just recently did an all-female rock camp that had like Nita Strauss and Nancy Wilson, and I think Sheila E. was there, and Lita Ford, and like just women counselors and female campers. Like, that has got to be a blast. Plus, Vixen still gigs out everywhere. They, in fact, they're supposed to come to town here, and Don Jameson was going to MC. I'm like, oh, yeah, I'll go backstage and meet him. But I think it got scuttled. But she is great. She's fun. And the story she told about being at whatever was before Foxborough and then getting maced and losing her friends and having the time of her life was so rock and roll to me. I'm like, yes, she was destined to be a rock star. The
story quickly descended from seeing the band and how great that was to, yes, the shenanigans that happened at the show. Yeah.
Fantastic.
And in the days before cell phones, where it was like, hey, will I ever see these people again? Maybe. I don't know.
That's right. So much fun. Britt is welcome back on anytime. That's for sure.
Hey, everybody. This is Britt Lightning from Vixen, and you're listening to The Ugly American Werewolf in London.
And then we had another repeat guest in Oliver Wakeman. Oliver had come in 2023 to talk about the John Wetton box set that had been put together, and a little bit about the book that he had contributed to. But Oliver was in Yes. I've seen him play in Yes. And he was there to talk about his new record, Anamkara, which he'd been kind of working on for a long time, and just talk about what went into creating all the songs. And he's just a real musician's musician, and talking about how he puts songs in buckets, like the kind of song it is. It's like, I don't have to make an album of all these things, but I can kind of tuck these over here for a while, tuck these over here, and I can revisit them. And I hope the album did well for him. It's not the kind of hard rock that we might kind of gravitate to, but it's got some amazing musicianship in there. It's kind of got that Celtic feel to it in a lot of places, and ethereal.
Yeah, and he did a really cool series on YouTube where he basically track by track explains it. Yeah, and that's cool because that's what we want to know. Okay, how did you write this? What went into it? How did you put it together? And another dude who doesn't let any grass grow underneath him. He's always got new stuff he's working on.
He's always working on something. Yeah, and I'd love to have him back on First Concert Memories to hear some of his early, because we're the same age, but we grew up in different parts of the world, so it'd be fun to hear that. I'd really love to hear more of the Anderson, Bruford, Wakeman, and Howe tour, because I think he kind of toured with his dad, and maybe his brother Adam did too. I'm not 100% sure on that, but I would like to hear more about that. So anytime, Oliver, anytime, we're here for you, man.
Hi, this is Oliver Wakeman, and you're listening to The Ugly American Werewolf in London.
One of the big coups, though, of the year was interviewing half of the current Asia lineup. As longtime listeners know, everything comes back to Asia for me and Jackson. And when they announced they were going to go on a new tour with a whole new band, right? Carl Palmer's not. He's busy doing Carl's ELP Legacy. Steve Howe is busy with Yes. So Jeff Downes comes out with a completely different band, Virgil Donati on drums, John Mitchell on guitar, and Harry Whitley on vocals. And it was one of those kind of YouTube things where Harry Whitley, he puts out songs, covers of famous songs he does, and he did some Asian ones. And they caught Jeff's eye. He goes, what else can you do kind of thing? And so they said, all right. Now, I don't even think Harry was 30 years old, whereas, the other guys are, well, let's say Jeff, we know, is a septuagenarian anyway. The other guys are pretty seasoned, but here's a guy who's kind of like a guy with a day job who's just very, very musically talented. And he gets to come and tour the U.S. and Asia. And they've already set up some dates for 2025 that they're going to do. But not only did we get to talk to Harry, we also got to talk to John Mitchell. Who was awesome.
Side bonus.
Yes, exactly. And the excuse was, well, they're still making up John's room, so we basically got Harry and John together, 2 for the price of 1. I also think it's like Harry's the new kid at camp, and the older kids, the older counselors like Jeff, he doesn't have time to walk Harry around. So he gets one of the kids who's been to camp for a few years, like John, to show him around, because other people had them on their shows and they interviewed them together. So I kind of feel like, all right, when Harry's got an interview, just make sure John goes with him, kind of a thing.
Yeah. He did have a couple of points to make on the couch while looking at his phone.
That's right. But I found John to be very funny. I thought Harry he's very humble. He's like, he's a regular guy who got this really cool opportunity. Mm-hmm. And, he took it in stride. Like, look, some people won't like it, but the fact of the matter is, because John Wetton's not here, if they want to hear this music, someone has to do it. And the reaction we're getting is people love it.
I was going to say, I think if you give it a chance, you will love it. Yes, it's not John Wetton. We understand that. However, I think Harry has a very high level of reverence for the music, and he understands that what the fans want, and he does a good job of not trying to be John, but also doing the songs well.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that Lisa gave him one of John's basses to play on the tour,
Yeah, that was pretty cool, yeah.
Which is really, really cool, and so everyone's on board with this is cool. And even one of our later guests says that, yeah, that's cool. They want to go out. That's fine. So happy for you, Harry. Happy for all the fans who still get to enjoy this music live. And we'll just see what 2025 brings for that band.
Hi, I'm Harry Whitley from Asia, and you're listening to the Ugly American Werewolf in London.
But then we went to a kind of an up and coming band. Obviously, we're in our 50s, and our musical tastes throughout our lives have always run older than our generation. And we get a lot of young bands that we have an opportunity to have on, but there's not always a great connection there. But I heard a little bit of October Drift, and I was busy trying to get stuff done for the show. So I just sent them to you. So Jackson, listen to these guys and tell me what you think. And if you like them, we'll get their lead singer and lead songwriter, Kiran Roy, on the show. And so you listened to, what did you think?
I mean, when you sent it to me, first of all, I mean, like you said, new band. I'm like, these kids are really young.
Yeah.
But I listened to it, and I just thought they had a great energy. I thought the music, even though it was new, it was very much in line with what we liked, like the old 120 minutes days.
Yeah.
I mean, it sounded like it sounded
There's
fresh.
a little Smiths in there.
Yeah, but
I can hear some replacements. Yeah, absolutely. No, yeah, it's new. There's no doubt about it. And some of it's a little mellow, but a lot of it is hop around rock, and October Drift is their new album was Blame the Young. Mm-hmm. They just did a European tour here, their first headlining tour on the continent. And I thought Kiran was cool to talk to, and just kind of one of those guys who decided a while back he wanted to do rock and roll, and they've been moving forward ever since. And so I think turning people on to new music, or just like we said on the past episode about the albums, if you don't know a certain album and we could turn you on to it, that's a cool part of the show.
Mm-hmm.
So here's a new band you didn't maybe know, new album we got before everybody else did. And I got to tell you, that's so cool. That's cool. If in 1993 we were getting albums before like all the other kids in college were, we would hold that over everybody's head. We would be like, we've got the new record, you don't.
Oh, you haven't heard this yet? Of course you haven't.
Of course, you're not in the business like we are. Kiran's great. October Drift is cool, and they gig around England all the time. Definitely go check out October Drift.
Hey, this is Kiran from October Drift, and you're listening to the Ugly American Werewolf in London.
But it's great to have our brother Scott Holliday from the Rival Sons back on. This time talking about a very special night as a teenager where he went to a Tom Petty show with 3 Southern California girls and hijinks ensued.
I was going to say, this is another one where it was really more the story than the actual concert that was the highlight.
Yeah, those two first concert memories where we had Scott talking about going to the Hollywood Bowl to see Tom Petty with those hotties, and then having Mick Wall talk about hanging out backstage with David Lee Roth. Yeah, he said the show was awesome, and I believe it was. But it was the next 15 hours that was really the story. And Scott's his band kicks ass, and they're going to go open for Guns N' Roses in Europe next summer, which is a huge gig because they only play stadiums. And I don't know what I know that they just had a live release kind of come out here recently. Those guys are just the folks who are keeping rock alive and making their own stuff and moving forward. And I will defend the Rival Sons. Maybe it took us a little while to catch on to them, but now that we know, I will prop them up, as long as we've got the show.
Yeah, absolutely. And it does. I mean, I'm super happy for them that they got the gig with Guns N' Roses, but I'm like, we're not in Europe. Come on, fellas.
I know.
Like over here.
I know, but they work very hard, and they will probably open for some huge acts, and they will probably also headline and do their own touring. So, and they'll play festivals. They play festivals in Europe. They play festivals in the U.S. They're actually really big in France right now. So that might be a good excuse to go to France. Like, yeah, honey, I'll take you to Paris.
Yeah.
But there's 2 nights where you're going to be by yourself. We're going to go to the show.
I mean, if they aren't playing here, then, I mean, what other choice do I have?
So we'll see. We'll see what happens next summer.
Hey, this is Scott Holiday from the Rival Sons. You're listening to the Ugly American Werewolf in London.
Now I'm going to skip to the last one. Our friend and weirdo Autumn Whitaker, who we love and adore, she's on a couple years ago. And she told us about a very special night that not everybody was certainly not backstage for. As part of the Barack Obama inauguration, the We Are One concert that had all these legends like John Mellencamp and Bruce Springsteen and U2 and James Taylor and Beyonce and Stevie Wonder and John Legend. And, I'm going to forget a bunch of people, but she's funny. She's quirky. She's a little younger than we are. And the story was, well, it's not one we're going to get everywhere.
And just to hear the matter-of-fact way that she described what was happening. Oh, yeah, I was just there and, I picked up a guitar and, somebody said, hey, do you want to pick? And I was like, nah, don't worry about it. And it was Bruce Springsteen. Just whatever. And then I think there was part of the story, too, about you asked her, had she ever met Obama before? Oh, yeah, I babysat for his kid. I babysat for his kids one night when we were just kind of hanging out. Sure, okay.
Yeah, that happens.
That's a world that's a world I don't live in. All right.
That's right. Yeah. Yeah, no, Denzel Washington and the family. Yeah, they did Stevie Wonder. They come over on Christmas. Like, really, my dad comes over on Christmas. He's not Stevie Wonder. But God bless her. And I think she's going back in the studio to make some new music here before too long. So we wish her all the best with that. But I got to say, the coup de grace, episode number 200, the man we've been chasing for years, the man we first saw at Celebrities Nightclub in Orlando as a special guest on the Aqua Tour for Asia, Rock and Roll Hall of Famer and legend, Steve Howe.
Now, you had been chasing him for a while, or, you know, is it going to happen? Is it not going to happen? And then you finally got the confirmation. And I mean, we're sitting here waiting for that other box to pop up. And I'm like, I think I might have an episode here. Is this really going to happen? And he comes on and he's just the nicest dude. He's just sitting there in his easy chair, having a cup of coffee, just talking about his life and making new music. And I couldn't believe it. Like I was trying to hold it together there because like you said, we saw him in what was that, 1991? It
was 92, I think it was.
Okay. Yeah. All those years ago, and just here he is now, and we get to talk to him. If we'd have come back from that show and said, you know what, I bet you in 30 years we'll get to talk to him. There's no way. There's no way.
For what?
Yeah. And why? And how?
Exactly. And how? Get it?
There we go. But
yeah, no, and I mean, look, I think that if you mess with him on business, he can be a little prickly.
Right.
I think if you ask him certain questions about Yes and former members, you might get some pushback. But we were talking about his solo album, and we'd obviously listened to it. We've obviously done the research on the guitars he used and things like that. Yes, there's some Yes questions, and I think he was okay answering a couple of Asia questions. We could have gone deeper, but you get limited time with Steve Howe. You know, you can't talk to him for like an hour and a half.
Right.
So we were just so happy to have the opportunity. And yeah, I mean, that interview was our second biggest show of the year. But like we said on the previous episode, the Van Halen 1984 episode was number one of the year, but was also the first one we did all year. So it makes sense that, over the course of 12 months, 11 and a half months, whatever it is, it's going to be number one. The Steve Howe interview didn't come out until late September. So, it's easily the latest in the top. I mean, you look at the top 9 or 10, everything's in the 160s or the 170s episode wise. Steve Hackett, 171, is 6th. Guitar Tech Lee Dixon, 166, is 9th. But Steve Howe is 2nd, and it's a possibility he could be number one before the end of the year, because not only do people want to hear from Steve, but Yes Official did give us a shout out on their socials, which was huge for us. And it's just one of those moments where it's like, that's fun. The band that you've been listening to for over 40 years, even though Steve wasn't in them when we kind of first came to it. We've been listening to this band for 40 years, and now they're promoting our show. Yeah. How fun is that?
Yeah. And to get to talk to a guy he's been around for so long, had this great career, is still making music. And I mean, like you said, we talked about Asia. I think there was a question in there, if there was new Asia music, would you be interested? And he just said, if it all worked out, absolutely.
Yeah. It was before that, though. He was very Steve Howe. He's like, well, I haven't heard anything. I'm not committing to anything.
Yeah. Right.
Like, yep, that sounds like you. Yes.
But it wasn't.
He's not against it. Yes, exactly.
Yeah. That was my thing. Is he didn't just say absolutely not. I would. That door is closed or whatever. He just seems like, yeah. I mean, if everything works out, sure, I would be amenable to it. I mean, definitely not an affirmative answer, but I think he that's still part of his life.
Well, and they're not fully formed songs yet.
Mm-hmm.
They're kind of sketches and chords and stuff like that. But Jeff can put them together.
Right.
You get Carl to play the drums on it. You get Harry to sing on it. Why wouldn't you do a little Steve Howe on it?
Yeah. I think that if that were to ever work out, that would be great. And it would be sad if it did work out if he wasn't part of it, just because of the track record and the fact that people still want to hear him in the band.
And Yes is working on new music. I know he wasn't really supposed to say anything. Said, we're writing, I think is the way he put it.
Mm-hmm.
But there's going to be another Yes album probably in 2025, and I'm sure they will tour. So we'll be able to see them again if we like. But yeah, I mean, just a guy who's kind of an open channel. Like, he can't stop the music from coming through him. He's made dozens and dozens of records. He's done all these solo albums. He's made all these records with Yes, with Asia, with GTR, with whomever. He just, the music kind of continues to pour through him. I'm so psyched that we had him on. I'm psyched to hear new things from him. I was watching some video channel the other day, and it was them in like 72, like when Rick had just joined the band on stage. And I'm like, wow, would you just look at them? And, the way Steve could play back then, of course, he had a lot more hair back then. And he actually just released a 12 Days of Christmas Steve Howe version.
Okay.
Him singing, too, which is interesting. But, all the amps he gets and the guitars and all the stuff that he gets, it's kind of funny. It's on Yes's Official if you want to go check that out. But that's somebody who I wanted to talk to for a really long time, who I admired for a long time.
Yeah, especially that it got to be the 200th episode, too. So it was kind of a milestone for us in a couple different ways.
Yeah. And in 2025, I mean, who knows who all we're going to get on the show. We'll have a 250th episode at some point, I guess, and we'll have to try to book somebody special for that.
Hi, this is Steve Hackett.
This is Mel Gannon from Simple Minds.
Hi, I'm Amanda Lehman.
Hey, what's up, everybody? It's rock and roll comedian Don Jameson.
Hi, this is Guy Fletcher from Dire Straits.
Hey, everybody. This is Britt Lightning from Vixen.
Hi, this is Oliver Wakeman.
Hi, I'm Harry Whitley from Asia.
Hey, this is Kiran from October Drift.
Hey, this is Scott Holiday from the Rival Sons.
Hi, this is Steve Howe of Yes, and you're listening to The Ugly American Werewolf in London.
Just reflect on the year, Jackson. It's pretty incredible. I mean, it's amazing that you and I, just two guys who like to talk rock and roll, and we kind of start off just talking about stuff that we loved, have kind of evolved into now we're helping to break new bands, and we're talking to absolute legends who we always dreamed of spending a little time with.
And people who, like Don Jameson, somebody who he's famous in his own right, but a big fan, and just connecting with people like that is pretty special. And I mean, you're right. This was just kind of something to do at the beginning.
Yeah. It's like, oh, it's COVID. I can't go anywhere. I can't do anything.
Right. I don't want to stay. I've got to stay in the house. What can we keep ourselves occupied with?
Yeah. All right, you listen to this, I'll listen to this, and we'll talk about it next week and kind of go from there.
And I'm glad we do these end of the year shows too, because I mean, at this point in time, stuff is starting to run together. So to go back and say, oh yeah, I do remember that one, or that was this year or 2 years ago.
I know. It's not like you say, oh no, that was show number 147. I can't remember that stuff. I mean, I generally can remember what year they were, but the number of the show, no, I can't remember that.
Right.
So yeah, I mean, we're going to continue to do cool things. I know we've got some killer concerts coming up next year.
And there's a lot of big albums having birthdays in 2025. So I'm excited about that too.
Yeah. And even something like Astra by Asia, which did not feature Steve Howe, but if it were up to a certain A&R legend, it would have. And I guarantee you it would have been a lot better. No offense to anyone named Mandy Meyer. But if Steve Howe had been on that record, it would have been awesome. So that's something to consider. But we want to hear from you guys. We want to hear, look, we do a lot of stuff as they turn 40 or 50 or have a big milestone. We want to hear from you what you want to hear us talk about. Check us out. Send us. You can DM us on any of the socials, or you can send us an email at uglyamericanwerewolf@gmail.com. Let us know the bands and the albums, the concerts you want to hear us review on the show. I know at least one person who's interested in hearing our Astra review. I don't know if we're going to do it or not. It was such a disappointment to me because it didn't have Steve Howe on it. But there's some songs on there that are still awesome anyway.
That might not be a bad idea, because I mean, it's just you can have an honest review of it. I mean, it's been a minute since I listened to it, so that might be fun.
Only turns 40 once, so
right.
We'll see. But thank you, Jackson. I mean, this is my passion play, but you've been here every step of the way, and you make time every week to do these recordings and do the research. I mean, we do a lot of research on this stuff besides listening to the songs, and we got to go through, watch videos, watch documentaries, listen to other podcasts that have had guests on so we don't ask the same stupid questions, pour through Wikipedia, whatever it takes, artist pages, to try to get the knowledge that we need to have the conversations we want to have. You're there every step of the way, man.
And I really enjoy it, and I appreciate you doing all the heavy lifting as far as the editing and setting up the guests and everything. Yeah, it's still fun to do, even though sometimes it's early in the morning and sometimes I'm not always in the same spot. That's fine. We make it work, and it's great. I love it, and I really enjoy doing this.
Well, that's I think what's so incredible about the medium is that we don't have to be at a radio station at 6 a.m. and pull the artists in to do an interview. I'm in Amsterdam, you're in Texas, and they're in Australia, and we're all just sitting around like we're having a cup of coffee or something like that. It's fantastic, so that's another reason why I love the medium, is that you can connect with people all over the world on the recording side, and then you can blast it out to people all over the world so they can listen and enjoy the conversations that we have. And 2025, holy mackerel. Yeah, there's going to be some great albums, some fun stuff, some surprises.
Yeah, and I'm hoping we can we can come up with some nice conversation topics too, like our 3 you love, 2 you hate, or new artist personnel pickups. Yeah, just stuff like that. Just
top free agents. Yeah. No, I've got a few in mind, and
right.
We'll definitely have some more of our Pantheon brothers and sisters on for some of those conversations, because that just makes it fun, and some great albums to review. So, hey, to everybody, thanks for a million for the most amazing 2024, and all the best for an amazing 2025. What an amazing year 2024 has been for us and for the Ugly American Werewolf in London. Reflecting on everything we did this year and all the amazing artists and legends and guests that we had on, it was fun. It's cool for me and Jackson to still be able to do this after something that really just started as a bit of a lark. It's like, hey, it's COVID. We're 4,000 miles away from each other. Let's try to keep sane. Let's do something to keep our minds off the problems in the world right now, and built it into something really special. It's special to us. I know it's special for a lot of our listeners. And I love the fact that it's growing all over the world. And that's thanks to you all. Thanks to you all who tune in every week or as often as you can to hear what we're thinking about, to hear what we're passionate about, to hear who we're going to have on. It's amazing, but it's cool that we don't have to be in the same town. We don't have to meet at a bar once a week to get together and do this. We can do it all remotely, send it out into the world, and then folks from every corner of the globe can hear what we're up to and share then what they like about it. Talk to their friends about the show and the interviews we're doing and the albums that we're reviewing, the concerts that we're going to. It's an amazing break from what is real life, which seems to be more and more complicated as every year goes on, less and less optimistic. But as long as Jackson and I have a chance to talk to at least each other and to other folks around the globe about this music that we're so passionate about, it really helps you get through those days and weeks and months that make up a year, which go by so much more quickly these days. And I've seen our demographics on Spotify. I know it's the same way for most of you, okay? There are very few teenagers who listen to this show. There are a lot of people in their 40s and 50s and 60s who do. So you know what I'm talking about. And if this little show helps make your drive to work easier, or your Saturday morning walk a little more pleasurable, or just helps you zone out, hey, we're happy that you like it, and we're going to keep doing it as long as we can. And we want to know, folks, did we get something right? Did we get something wrong? Did we miss the point? Did we leave out your favorite part? We want to hear from you about our show. You email us at uglyamericanwerewolf@gmail.com. You let us know the bands, the albums, the tours, the concerts, the DVDs, the books, the rock properties you want to hear us talk about here on the show. Let us know which artists you want to get on the show. Let us know which bands you want to hear us review on First Concert Memories, and we'll do our best to get that done. Thanks as always to Pantheon Podcast for making us part of the family, and thanks to our incredible sponsor, RareVinyl.com. Guys, we've had the best year from RareVinyl.com that we've had in the 2.5 years we've been working with them, and I'm sure the best is still to come. If you haven't gotten anything from them yet, hey, that one-time code of UGLY will save you 10% off of one entire order. So if you're hearing this on Boxing Day, or you got a little cash, and now you want to go get yourself something special that no one was thoughtful enough to get you, go to rarevinyl.com. Use code UGLY. Your record collection will thank you, and you'll save a little bit of scratch. That's it for 2024, folks. Thanks so much for tuning in and sharing our lives with us. There's a lot more to come in 2025. So until then, be cool and keep doing what you do to keep rock alive.